A team of dragons and mages were coming from Detroit, but without Amy's formidable magic powers, the mages could not open a portal. Their strength had to be held in reserve in case they needed to engage the dragon to compel him to stop destroying the town. Galen didn't know if Vala was hoping to slow the dragon's rampage, talk him down, or stop him completely. She had spent every nickel she could on buying supplies to make new magically imbued artifacts. He had no idea what the items in her massive backpack were capable of. "It's up ahead, south by southwest," she said. He knew that she was using her modified wristwatch to point her to the closest source of magic. The dwarf was a pioneer in the mapping of magic, and had identified that different magical beings had different magical waveforms that could be measured. While she still complained about her watch not being quite specific enough, he thought it was practically miraculous. She could set it to a type of magic, dragon, mage, pixie, or void, and if a strong enough source was within range, it would point them directly to it. As soon as they'd left Cranbook, she had tuned it to dragon and compensated for his signature, which he thought was amazing, and used it to direct them over the repetitive landscapes of pines and snow. Now, however, he no longer needed to be directed. "I can see it ahead," he said. A great plume of smoke rose over a low ridge. Through the receiver in his ear, Galen heard Vala suck in a sharp breath. They had been told that the dragon was wrecking the town, but it was different than seeing it. Plus, he knew she had been raised to fear and be suspicious of dragons, much in the same way that he had been raised to think dwarves were an inferior species. It was a miraculous ability for a mind to change enough that the two of them were in business together. They crossed a small ridge, and the pine trees gave way to a town, or what was left of one. The downtown area, little more than a major intersection, was in ruins. Two wrecked fire trucks protruded from a massive pile of red bricks that was all that was left of the fire station. This was further evidenced by the fires burning all over town. Galen grimaced when an older-looking, stately building collapsed into a giant plume of fire. Nearby, a much more modern and dumpier gas station burned as well, and spewed thick, greasy-looking smoke. Although, he thought grimly, the destruction was to be expected. This is what dragons did. Sometimes they did it because they were upset, or because they wanted to prove a point. At other times, it was simply that they were dueling and had become so focused on defeating their opponent that they no longer paid attention to the destruction they caused, or they did it out of spite, or as retribution for a slight, either real or imagined. There were hundreds of reasons for a dragon to cause such destruction, but he had never seen one behave like the one below them did. While buildings and homes burned all around it, the dragon seemed to roll in the grocery store. "What is it doing?" Vala asked. Galen wished he had an answer. The dragon drove his horns into the refrigeration section of a grocery store, the roof was long gone, and knocked the freezers over. He rubbed his face through the frozen pizzas before he flipped and wiggled his back in the frozen fruit to make the world's biggest smoothie. A moment later, he righted himself and dripped mashed fruit from his back as he sniffed and lumbered toward the dairy in the back of the store. Without a pause, the beast plowed his face through the glass doors that protected the milk, yogurt, and butter from the warmth of the store. With this barrier broken, he pawed out all the dairy products and pranced in the mess, kicking and pulling at the various containers of milk like a dog. He whipped his head around, and for a second, Galen thought he might have noticed their approach. Instead, his extremely dilated pupils, even from a distance he could see his eyes were almost completely black, focused on a stacked display of 12 packs of soda that likely promoted an upcoming sports game. The beast crouched, moved toward the display, wiggled its hips like a kitten hunting a ball of yarn, and pounced on the cans. Carbonated sugar water sprayed everywhere. He seemed to take great delight in this, and splashed and thrashed in his soda shower. "I think I can defeat him," Galen said. "He's bigger than me, but he's very distracted." Which means he's not a